Hello and welcome to the dungeon. I'm your host Rob. In today's video we're going to be looking at a fighter rogue multi-class, and we're going to be trying to specialize in archery. And the main thing I like about these kind of builds is that we don't really have as much of a focus on mobility. It allows us to just be able to attack from almost anywhere on the battlefield, and we're going to be able to use the steady aim ability from Tashes, or even the hide action as a cunning action, in order to give ourselves advantage a lot more often, and then just try to shoot people from anywhere on the battlefield, essentially, right? And now we don't have to worry as much about having an ally within 5 feet for our sneak attack, if we can just give ourselves advantage essentially at will with our bonus action. So this is going to be the main focus of this build. We're going to try to give ourselves advantage, and we're going to try to get as many crits as we can possibly get with our sneak attack, and just double up all those sneak attack dice. Now we could just do that on a pure rogue, but fighter brings some really tempting things that I like quite a bit. And I decided that I was going to go with champion fighter for my subclass, mostly for the passive doubling of the crit chance. Now I do think that in general, that's not a great ability. You can't choose when you're going to get a crit. It's not like the Battle Master where you've got your specific maneuvers and you've got your superiority dice, and you can choose when you want to use those abilities, and allows you to be a lot more strategic, right? That doesn't really happen with the champion. You crit or you don't, right? But we're going to be trying to just get a lot of crits, and passive doubling of a crit chance sounds pretty good. I'm also going to be combining this with the Elven Accuracy feat, assuming your Dungeon Master allows feats, to give us basically now 3 dice when we have advantage. That's not quite what it does. Basically you roll, and then you can replace one of those dice and re-roll it. But basically that's like rolling 3 die 20 with advantage, right? It also gives us a +1 to our dex, or wisdom, or intelligence, or charisma, but probably dex, right? Although it does mean you don't need to start with an odd score of dex, but maybe start with 16 and then you can put it into something else. That's fine too, right? Doesn't matter what the stat was you increased. Anytime you attack with one of those 4 stats, you're going to be able to have your super advantage, we'll just call it, right? So now we're going to be rolling 3 dice with our advantage to try to get a crit with, and we'll be critting on a 19 or a 20. So pretty good chance we're going to get in a lot of crits. I think Battle Master would make a lot more sense if we were in a melee focused build, and that will be a future build we're going to look at. Is going to be combining with Battle Master, using Riposte, and probably Sentinel to give us as many opportunities to get more sneak attacks in on other people's turns, not on our own. But not this build. The other option that we could go with, of course, would be to take, say, Ranger or something, which could also give us the archery fighting style, just like Fighter will give us. Gloomstalker gives us an extra attack in the first round, and that extra attack does extra damage. Nothing wrong with that. I think there's some potential there as well. And it gives us, some basic spells if we wanted to go with only 3 levels of Gloomstalker. We're still going to have first level spells. And the other fighter option would, of course, be the Arcane Archer. And Arcane Archer has some nice abilities as well. But the ability I really want from Arcane Archer is probably the Curving Shot, which they don't get till level 7. And basically just makes it if you miss, you can re-roll, but you have to attack a different target. You just fire your arrow wide, and then you just curve it into somebody else. It's a great ability, but, overall, I want to try to keep my sneak attack dice as high as possible, which really means we want to minimize the fighter levels. I do think if your campaign is going to go all the way to 20, then you might want to consider more fighter. I don't know that you need to, though, but it's at least worth thinking about. 4 levels of fighter would give you another feat choice or ability score increase. 5 would give you extra attack, and 6 would give you another ability score increase or a feat, which, 6 levels of fighter and 14 levels of rogue would give you 7 feat choices, and that's a lot of feat choices or ability score increases. But I don't know that we need that many, and I'm personally fine with just getting more sneak attack in. It also means that we have to give up a lot of the high-end rogue abilities, and we might not want to do that because some of them are pretty good too. So that takes care of the fighter subclass. As far as the rogue subclass, I think this one's a lot more open. I think that there's some really good options, and I kind of consider this to be just more of a player's choice, right? Um, However, I will say that I personally like the Scout, so that's the one we're going to talk about in this video. And it's mostly because I think that their level 3 abilities are pretty good, and I like their level 13 ability quite a bit as well. The level 9 ability is just more movement, but it's not bad, nothing wrong with that. The level 17 ability is also really good, but the only way we'd even get that is if our campaign goes all the way to 20 and we only took 3 levels of fighter. We'll go over it anyway, just to be thorough, but the level 3 abilities, though, you get the Skirmisher ability. You can use up to half your movement speed as a reaction when an enemy ends its turn within 5 feet of you, and this movement does not provoke opportunity attacks. I like this ability a lot because one of the problems we have on archers in general is when things like get right up in our face, it's a lot harder for us to do our job. And yeah, it's not as bad on a rogue because you can use your cunning action to disengage and then you can move away. But this way, you can move away for free, not trigger an opportunity attack, and on your turn, you can use your steady aim again, or whatever else you want to do as a bonus action. You can use your cunning action for something else, and you don't have to worry about it as much. So I do think that that's a really solid ability on an archery-based class. We also get Survivalist. This isn't really going to help us in combat, but it's just a really great ability in my opinion. If you didn't have the nature and survival skills, you get them for free. But not only do you get those skills, but it says your proficiency bonus is doubled for any ability check you make that uses either of those proficiencies. So not only are you getting 2 skills for free, which is already pretty good, but you're getting expertise in those skills, essentially, for free. It doesn't call them expertise, but that's what it is, right? So not only am I getting those 2 free skills, I'm also getting expertise in them. That's a really great ability for level 3. So I'm not going to take either of those skills on character creation. The level 9 ability, like I said, an extra 10 feet of movement, but it includes our swimming and climbing speeds as well, so that's, kind of nice. And we get a level 13 Ambush Master, which I really love. You have advantage on initiative rolls. In addition, the first creature you hit in the first round of combat becomes easier for you and others to strike. Attack rolls against that target have advantage until the start of your next turn. So not only will you have advantage on all your own initiative rolls, but if you hit that guy, all your allies in the first round are going to get advantage on that target for their next attacks. And personally, I think that's pretty good too. It really can kind of help you to just buff your allies a lot, which a lot of times rogues aren't necessarily the best for that. So I think it's kind of a neat ability. Level 17, you get Sudden Strike. If you take the attack action on your turn, you can make 1 additional attack as a bonus action. Now, obviously, that's going to compete with your bonus actions, so you won't be able to steady aim and do this at the same time or whatever, but that's fine. This attack can benefit from Sneak Attack even if you have already used it this turn, but you can't use your Sneak Attack against the same target more than once in a turn. So again, this ability is not going to be very good if you're fighting one really powerful foe. Like maybe you're up against an ancient red dragon, right? Because you are level 20. So not so good there. You can make an extra attack, but you're not going to be able to sneak attack him again. Still better than nothing. If you only had 1 attack around, 2 attacks is better, right? And maybe you missed the first time. This gives you a second chance to hit and now get in that sneak attack damage. Nothing wrong with that, right? But it's even better if you're fighting, a powerful foe that also has some minions, because now you can sneak attack one of them and sneak attack the main guy. And that's where it really starts to shine. Just sneak attacking twice on your turn is really, really good. So that's going to be the basic concept of the build. We just want to have as many opportunities to crit as possible. We're going to give ourselves double the crit chance as possible with a 19 or a 20. We're going to give ourselves super advantage, so to crit even more often. And then we're going to try to double up all those sneak attack dice every chance we get, right? And that's going to be the focus of this build. I do think that as far as some of the racial choices, right? If we're going with elven accuracy, we have to be some variant of elf. Now you can be a half elf, nothing wrong with that either, right? But I think this one's kind of more open-ended as well, right? If you want the movement speed, Wood Elf is a great choice, right? And wisdom bonus, nothing wrong with that either. Wisdom saves are a lot more common than, say, intelligence saves, which is what we get from High Elf, right? High Elf does give us a bonus cantrip, but I'm going to lean into that more if I'm playing like a melee focused rogue, I think, because I could pick up like a booming blade or a green flame blade with that ability, and they're just not as good for me when I'm using a bow, right? So I'm less interested in the high elf in this particular case. I think Drow Elf makes an interesting possibility just because of the Rachel spell options. You know, that could be all right. But I'm probably just going to go with Wood Elf. Wisdom saves are great, and more movement isn't a bad thing. As far as feat choices, obviously the first feat I'm taking is Elven Accuracy, right? That's one of the main core components of the build. We're going to talk about it as if your DM is allowing feats, because if he's not allowing feats, you can still do this build, it just won't be as good because you won't have the super advantage available, right? But if he does, even better. I'm probably looking to max my dexterity with my next ability score increase if it's not already maxed. And then for other feat choices, I think Sharpshooter is a decent consideration in this build. I don't think it shines as much as it would on, like, say, an Arcane Archer, because if you're attacking 3 or 4 times around and maybe even action surging and attacking 3 or 4 more times on top of that, that passive, like, that's just that 10%, or not 10%, that 10 bonus damage per hit just gets stacked on top of itself. So many more opportunities, right? If you're only attacking one time per round, it's not as good. But I think that if we took enough fighter levels to get extra attack, it starts to look a lot better. And if we're able to give ourselves advantage often enough, which we should be able to do all the time essentially, right? Then I think that with 3 dice to hit with, our chances of landing that Sharpshooter hit, even with the -5 hit penalty, are still pretty good. And don't forget, we're going to be able to take the archery fighting style, right? We're going to have our proficiency bonus. We're going to have a magic bow at some point, hopefully, at least, right? We might even have magic arrows. We're going to have a high dex. You know, our chances of hitting will be pretty good, even still, especially if we're able to give ourselves advantage a lot. And I think it's pretty good. So I'm going to probably take the Sharpshooter feat as well. One nice thing about Scout in particular is that we don't need to worry about Crossbow Expert or Crossbow Master, whatever it's called, the one where you don't have disadvantage if you're using ranged weapons in melee, because you're going to have your free disengage as your reaction. So if somebody does end in melee range of you, you're able to move away and you don't have to worry about it. Now maybe somebody else ends in melee range of you, like you already used your reaction to move away from the first guy, now a second guy attacks you, and you know, that kind of sucks. But you know, that's what the disengage is for, is your cunning action. Just get out of there on your next turn. But I think that's pretty rare, and it's not going to be the norm in any event. So I think that we're not going to need the Crossbow Expert, which is good. That's going to free up another choice. I think the mobility feat might be worth considering, but I like mobility more on like a melee character where I need the extra movement speed to get around the battlefield more. That being said, movement speed is never a bad thing, right? But, you know, if I'm using a longbow, for example, and I've got range for days, I don't need it as much as I would if I'm playing a melee-focused character, right? I would, however, strongly consider Resilient Wisdom or Resilient Con. And the reason is because I'm probably not going to have a super, super great Constitution saving throw, because I'm probably going to start Rogue and get the extra skill proficiencies at level 1. You could start Fighter, and this is probably the only time I've ever made a multi-class build with Fighter where I didn't suggest starting Fighter, because usually if I start Fighter, it's because I want the heavy armor and the shield proficiencies, and I probably want proficiency on Constitution saving throws, which will also give me proficiency on concentration saving throws. But we're not going to be casting any spells, so we don't need concentration. And I'm probably not going to be wearing heavy armor because I'm going to be using a bow. And I mean, even if I have expertise on sneaking, heavy armor is going to give me disadvantage on my stealth checks. I'd rather not have that if I'm going to be sneaky. And it's going to cancel out my initiative bonus. And, you know, I'm probably going to have a good initiative. If I get to high enough level, I could be rolling initiative with advantage. You know, I'm probably not going to be wearing heavy armor. So I don't really need to start Fighter. I would have an extra couple of hit points. Not a bad thing there either. But I really think I want to just go to like Rogue 4, get my ability score increased, which will actually be my feat, which will also give me a point of dex probably, right? It'll give me something anyway. Get my elven accuracy. Then I'm probably going to go into the fighter once I've already got the rogue kind of established a bit. And then I'm just going to go all the rest of the way rogue, right? And like I said, I think the 3 or 4 levels of fighter combined with a lot of sneak attack dice and everything else that the rogue brings is going to be a really, really solid combat build. But you've also got, because you have action surge, you can potentially do a lot on your turn with cunning actions and action surge and your regular actions. Like, you can get a lot of things done on that character in one round of combat, I also like the fact that you can be sneaky, you can be a scout, you've got an emergency heal if you need it. And yeah, second wind is not going to be a great heal for you because it scales with your fighter levels, and you're not going to have a lot of fighter levels. It won't be spectacular. But in an emergency, it's also kind of nice, Even if you roll like a 2 or something and you get back 5 hit points, that could be the difference between getting knocked out and not, So I don't think that that's bad at all. And like I said, action surge, the fighting style, +2 from archery. I think these are all pretty good pickups. And especially, of course, getting crits on 19 or 20s while rolling 3 dice. It's just going to give you a lot of opportunities to get in that damage. So that's going to be this video. Like I said, I'm gonna take a look at a rogue melee build next week, and we're going to be going with Battlemaster. Not to spoil too much, but it is what it is. And I think that build's going to be a lot of fun as well. And it's going to be a little more open-ended because we're not going to be restricted to like a specific race either, right? Like, that's the one thing that is a little unfortunate about this build, is that if you want to have the elven accuracy, you've got to be some kind of elf or half elf at the least, right? And that is a little more restrictive. But hey, it's, elves have great stats for rogues, and because fighters can use strength or dex, they're perfectly fine in that role as well. So it's not like it's a bad choice. It's not like we're being forced to play like a half orc or something where we wanted to use dex, but now we're using strength, or we're getting strength, sorry. Something like that might not be the best, right? But, elf is fine. It's just some people don't like having their role-playing choices limited or their character creation choices limited. They like to be a little more open. So, but if you want to play an elf, I think this is a great build for it. Anyways, that's everything. Leave me your comments, suggestions, and whatever else you might have in the comment section. I love reading everybody's comments. And feel free to like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, all that kind of stuff. And I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching.